here with Bella Poff, and while she looks like she's awful darn cute, she's actually not our speaker tonight. Our speaker is her mom, Jenny Poff, who is one of the leaders for one of our teams, Moroccan Angels, walking in memory and honor of Butch and Kathy. And Jenny's here tonight to share the story of her family.
Hi, how are you? Good. Okay, so recently she mentioned the Zapata event that we had recently. One of my friends, Angela Walters, is the Zapata consultant, and she asked me last year when I was pregnant if I wanted to have a Zapata open house to raise money where she would donate her commission, which is 30% of the sales, to our team. And I said, I'm too pregnant. Come back to me next year. So this year we did it. We just had it last week, and if you find our page online, we were able to raise in one night $600. 350 of that was from the sales of the jewelry, which she decked me out today in, so I could plug her Zapata in. And then the difference was made up of a raffle that we had. We had the Seawolves, no, we had the Otters donate, Lake Erie Speedway, the Marsh & Marsh Real Estate Services team, 31, there was a gamut of other prizes. And now this year, 2012, I'm going to plan a golf memorial, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in a second. So I wrote my story because it's kind of a lot, and to put the timeline together, I wrote it. So I'll try to read it with some enthusiasm. So I'm honored to stand here tonight and share with you my story about lymphoma. I was born in Erie just 10 years after the fourth child to Butch and Kathy Morawski. In 1987, my parents and I moved to Ashtabula, where we owned and operated Chapel Hills Golf Course. During that time, my siblings were off to college and starting their adult lives. In 1991, my father was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm not sure if it was the time period or my age, but the thought of radiation therapy was terrifying. But he was a fighter, and he would do the 50-minute drive to the Cleveland Clinic, receive his treatment, and then work on the golf course the rest of the day. 7 years later, in 1998, just as I was preparing to leave home for the first time and head to college, my mother was diagnosed with the same thing. They researched environmental because of the golf course, and there was talk about her medication for her rheumatoid arthritis. She was entered into a California study, but her treatment was bad. At 18, I was 18, I gave her her first haircut. They said it would make it better and easier to cope. During college, I felt depressed and anxious. My addiction to codependency grew stronger. I had been battling a very bad relationship that was from my addiction to help people. I somehow always picked people that didn't want to be helped. I wanted to be with her, help her, care for her, help with the golf course, something. When I would call, they would pretend or sugarcoat how things really were. And growing up just with my mom and dad, I felt left out of the intense thing affecting my family, and I wanted to know more about what was going on. Mom and Dad would both go in and out of remission over the next few years. I grew into my adult life, graduated, career, marriage, and in 2004, my parents sold the business and relocated back to Erie. 2 years later, we gave birth 4 weeks early by emergency C-section to our beautiful daughter, Brianna, who's not here. Smurfs. Sorry, I'm nervous. I traveled home with her about once a month from Columbus to see my parents. My mother was my best friend. I talked to her every day. How do I do this? How do I think of that? How do I do this with the baby? I mean, she had 5 kids, so she was and a nurse, so I avoided a lot of co-babies that way. It was hard to be so far away from both of them, and I knew that my husband and I needed to get working on moving from Columbus back to Erie. When our daughter turned 1, my mother just came home from a stem cell transplant. She knocked on death's door, and my father was with her every step of the way. My mother couldn't come to Brianna's party because her immune system was far too weak to handle the crowd. It wasn't fair. Then my daughter fell ill. Viral infection, respiratory infections, followed with febrile seizures. There was no way I could do this on my own anymore. We had to go back. Just after Brianna's 2nd birthday, the planets aligned and I accepted a job with Marsh & Marsh Real Estate Services as their brand manager. Without the Marsh family, I would not be able to move home to be with my family. Bree and I moved right after her 2nd birthday in September of '08 and stayed with my parents while my husband stayed behind to sell our house. For about 4 to 5 weeks, we had an intense amount of time with my parents, and it felt amazing. Soon my mother wasn't feeling well again. She felt lumps again in areas where she was given a 50 to 60% chance of remission from the stem cell. The doctor's appointments began. I remember I was at Paul Lorai's studio for a photo shoot with the Marshes, and I got a call from a family friend, which was very unusual, asking where my parents were. I knew my mom had been home in bed the last couple of days with pain, but her 35 years of nursing said it was nothing big, maybe just some gas pains. And her years of battling the pain of arthritis never once had stuck her in bed. But now, where were they? I called their cell phones, the house, the cancer centers, finally was able to tell me that she was admitted to St. Vincent. The lymphoma had hit her liver and her pancreas. 8 weeks later, she passed away under hospice care. The 8 weeks of knowing that it was it made the grieving easier because we just had to wait for her to be ready to leave us. The Great Lakes hospice care nurse was amazing. With her, we were able to understand the stages of death, and at least for me, that made me understand and accept what was happening easier. 2 weeks later, Brianna had another seizure, the worst one yet. I was lost and I needed my mom. Afterwards, while adjusting to not talking to her every day and doing the things we talked about doing when I was back in Erie, all while watching my father build this intense relationship with my daughter Brianna. Through Bree, even though Bree was his 7th grandchild, she was the only one that really had spent that amount of intense time with him. There were times while Mom was in the hospital that Dad would just leave to see Brianna, along with a chocolate gooey donut for him to watch her make a mess out of. About 7 months later, we were excited and happy again. I was pregnant and due near my mother's birthday. Maybe this would help fill the void. But instead I miscarried, and I felt lost without my mother again. At the beginning of 2010, we moved into our dream house, and I was 8 weeks pregnant. It was bittersweet. I needed my mom more than ever as the baby came due. I needed her to help with the nursery, the house, to guide me in the path of how to handle another child. And that summer, as we prepared the house to be our home, I desperately leaned on my father for home improvement help. But those 18 months of not having his wife, his friend since they were 15, was wearing on him. He was weak, tired, and had no energy. Sorry. I delivered our second daughter, Isabella, on August 31st, 2010. My father was taking care of Brianna, though still weak and tired, and sad to share this new baby without my mom. Not to mention to be back in the same hospital where my mother nursed for many, many years, and then later treated by the same nurses she once worked alongside of. A couple of days after being home with our new baby, my father was admitted into the hospital. The lymphoma hit an organ, and we lost him 8 weeks later. He was not the man I knew during those last weeks. He acted so different, talked so different, and he and I fell apart, making his death much different from my mother's. Another 6 to 7 months later, our family experienced another life transition that turned our world upside down. We knew that we had to get back to the basics, and we acted on that rapidly to get our girls, our marriage, and our life back together and on the right track. All this before I'm 32. I've always been a proactive person, and my codependency has always backfired on me. I've always picked the wrong people to try to save. And after many years of being unsuccessful, I think I finally found something I can pour my heart and passion into, and know that no matter what I do, how much time I spend, or the resources I exhaust, the Leukemia Lymphoma Society will always be grateful and appreciative of the efforts I make. Last week, I held an event that raised over $600 for my Light the Night team. I'm thrilled that we raised that much money, and now I'm planning the Butch and Kathy Moravsky Golf Memorial Tournament. It seems only right that we have one after all the years in the golf industry that consumed not only my life, but my parents. It's my personal mission this year to raise $2,500. Last year I did $1,000, and I'm at $1,000 today, to help others to not lose their parents so early in life. My mission is to help find a cure, to help diagnose earlier, to treat better and more efficiently, so that if my time comes, because there is a suspicion of environmental issues, my daughters can have more than hope that things will be okay. That I will be there when it's their time to walk down the aisle and to help with my grandbabies. So I invite you to share your stories, think outside the box to build events and activities that work around the hard times of our economy. My family was lucky. My parents had resources and the means to take care of their health experiences, but I can't imagine not being able to pay for one chemo treatment. Think about the patients and families that have blood cancer and no means for medication, treatment, or other support services. Good luck this year in your fundraisers, and together we can make a difference. And please see me afterwards if you're interested in participating in the Poff Memorial next year. Thank you.